Today, I have a fantastic guest on the show. Lucille Roache is a business startup coach, author, and the host of the Female Startup podcast. She helps new service-based female business owners understand how to identify and attract the right clients so they can create long-term success in their business. And we have had an absolutely great conversation, so you don't want to miss it. Let's jump in. Guys, welcome back to the podcast and welcome, Lucille. I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast. If you didn't know, guys, I was actually on Lucille's podcast a little while ago, and I will link that in the show notes for you. But welcome, Lucille, to the Wedding Procast UK.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to jump into this discussion because for me, like, the wedding industry is something I absolutely love and have loved for since I was a little girl, really. I am just your typical romantic, watching all the Dirty Dancing, Pretty Woman, all the fairy tales. I am completely in love with the idea of being in love and getting married. So when I was looking to start my photography business, weddings was where it was at for me. So the idea of starting a business in the wedding industry is just so super exciting. So before we jump into all of the goodness, tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do and how you came to be doing what you do.
Yes. So I'm a business startup coach, and I tend to work with new female entrepreneurs who run a service-based business. So coaches, photographers, counselors, those types of people, website designers, all of those types of people. And I started my business, I think it was in September or October 2018. And before I started my business, I'd always been employed. So I had been a manager, and then before that, I was a lawyer. And I was just really unhappy in my work. And I was like, there must be more to life than this. This can't just be what I'm meant to do, just go to a job that I hate and then go home, because it felt like that's what my entire existence was. So I started to look for different things that I could do, ways that I could give back. I stumbled on mentoring, so I started mentoring with the Prince's Trust. That then led me to coaching, and I took a coaching course, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And the plan initially was, I'm just going to use coaching to help me to be a better manager. But as part of the program, you had to coach people. And I was like, I actually love this part of it. And that's the favorite part of my job. So I was like, hold on, this could be my career. Just coaching people could be my career. And the thing is that I find this with a lot of women as well. Sometimes we like to go for the most difficult option, like something that's very simple. We think, well, it can't be that simple. There must be some kind of trick. It can't be that easy. So my brain was like, I can't actually have a career doing something that I love. It can't be as simple as that. And then I started to embrace it. And then I started my business focusing on women. And then more and more people started coming to me for business. So now what I do is I provide one-to-one coaching, I do workshops, I do training, I've got my podcast. And so it all just kind of expanded from me just being brave enough to be able to step into doing something completely new and then building a business off of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing people's stories about how they start in business, because it is different for all of us. But I think one of the common threads is, realizing that there's got to be something more, that you don't have to be sitting there doing something that you hate. And that's not what life's about. Life's there to be enjoyed. So tell us a little bit about your podcasting journey, because I'm always fascinated to know from other podcasters how and why they decided to start their podcasts.
Yes. So it's one of those typical things that for a coach anyway, people always say, and I say people, influencers always say, if you want to be able to get out there, one of the things you have to do is you either have to write a book or you have to start a podcast, because that's going to develop your expertise. I don't like doing something just for the sake of it. So I'd heard that, and I was like, I'm not just going to start a podcast for the sake of it. And then in March of 2021, I think it was last year actually, I hosted my own summit. So it was a virtual summit, but it was an audio only summit. So I had about 15 speakers. entrepreneurs and I was interviewing them, and it was just audio only. And I had so much fun speaking to people, getting to know about them and their business and listening to them sharing their expertise. And then afterwards, I was processing it and I was debriefing, and I was like, I actually really like that. That's effectively what a podcast would be. So I was like, now I feel like I am ready to start a podcast because it is something that I've done and I enjoy, and I want to be able to connect with people. And what better way to be able to connect and collaborate with people than saying, oh, come on my podcast and talk to my audience about what it is that you do. And, and maybe I can do the same on your podcast as well. So that's kind of how my podcast started. It wasn't necessarily because the influencers told me that I needed to do it. It's because I'd experienced it for myself, enjoyed it, and I was like, this is so cool. But then, of course, I didn't know how much work a podcast was, because, you don't really see the ins and outs of running a podcast. I was like, damn, this is a lot of work. So it took me a while to find my groove and to be able to kind of get into the swing of recording my podcast episodes. And then also reminding myself that that podcast episode was like my anchor piece of content, and I could create sub pieces of content from that main anchor piece of content. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think once I started to realize that, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad now. And now I batch record my episodes, so it makes it easier. And I'm just like, see, like the first week, so this week I'm recording all of my episodes for the entire month of July, and then once that's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And I can just schedule them and they just get released, and it's just like magic. It's amazing.
I have to say, for me, I loved radio. I thought, do you know what? I could do radio. I'd love to be a radio host. Yeah. And I actually went and did some volunteering at BBC Radio Northampton. Nice. And I've been on the radio, BBC Radio Northampton, a couple of times with different things that I've been doing. And I just thought, you know what? I'd love to have my own little radio show. That would be really cool. And when I started the society, I was like, well, I need weekly content, I need a blog, and I was just like, I'd done a blog with my wedding photography, and I was like, I don't want to do another blog. Writing is just so time consuming for me. I talk so much quicker than I write, and I feel like you get your personality across a lot more when you talk. So for me, I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to do a podcast. It's going to be my own radio show. I'm going to love it. Yay. And I do. I absolutely love it. Exactly what you say. I love talking to people. I love having people come on the show and diving into topics. So that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. But we are here today to talk about starting a business. Yeah. So for me, when I think about starting a business, I'm very into the logistics of it, which I think is something that a lot of people, and I don't want to sort of put everybody into a box, but I feel a lot of people forget about the finer details, like setting yourself up for tax, what is your profit margin, and all of those like standard things. I think it is so easy to start a business these days that the fundamentals are forgotten. Yes. And then, we're also not looking at our processes. We're not looking at our systems. We're not looking at, how we actually run a business. So I thought what would be great for us to go through today is maybe your top 3 things to consider when you're starting your business, and we'll have a little bit of a chat around those. So let's start with number 1. What is your top tip? Well, maybe not. Maybe go backwards, 3 to 1.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm happy to do that. And I love what you said, because I think absolutely when people start a business, it's that excitement of starting a business, that excitement of having that creative control, that people just jump straight into it. And what I say is that's like that they skip the foundational steps that you need to take when you're building a business, and they aim straight for the sexy things, like immediately creating their website and posting on social media. But for me, when you're thinking about starting a business, I'm just going to say the top 3. So for me, one of the most fundamental things that you have to understand is, what is it that I am offering? Like, what's the purpose of this business that I am creating? Because I think, again, people start a business, like you say, because it's so simple. I'm just going to start this business. I am just going to sell candles. Well, what's the purpose of you selling the candles? Is it because you want to help people to be more relaxed? Is it because you want to help people who run spas to be able to equip their spas with beautiful smelling candles? Is it because you want to be able to help busy professional women to unwind from a full day's work. Like, what is the purpose of you starting the business? That then leads into, who is the audience? Who is it that I have created this product or this service for? Because when I started my business, I was one of those people who was just like, I can help everybody. Everybody is my ideal client. Like, I could work with men, I can work with women, any type of business it is that you have. The fundamentals of a business are essentially the same. So I can pretty much help anybody. But the reality is that everybody is such a wide term. It includes so many different people that there is no way that you could possibly help every single person. So like when you break it down into specific demographics, it's like you've got everybody includes the elderly, everybody includes teenagers, everybody includes toddlers, everybody includes motorcyclists who are in a motorcycle club or something like that, or in a drama club. So it includes so many different groups of people that there is no way that you could possibly be for everybody. So for me, the first thing that I would say to do is to first of all get really clear on what's the purpose of your business, what is it that you are doing, and then secondly to start thinking about who is that audience that I am trying to reach with the product or the service that I have created, and being as specific as possible. And they talk about niching down. I don't think that my niche is very niche. And when I say niche, I mean like the target group of people that you're working with. So I say that I work with female startups. I could be more specific and I could say I work with new female coaches, or I work with new female counselors. But I'm happy with new female startups because I make it clear what I mean when I say new female startups. So when you get clear on your target audience, it's about don't let people kind of assume who it is that you want to work with. Be clear. I delivered some training a couple of weeks ago, and the training, so as part of the training, one of the things that the attendees had to do was deliver a pitch. So I'd been preparing them to deliver this pitch. And as they were delivering this pitch, there was this one woman, and she has this business where it's for bigger boobed women. And so she sells things for bigger boobed women, and I can relate to that because I'm a big boobed woman myself. And as she was delivering her presentation, she was talking about her target audience, and she was saying, so this is for, so specifically, I am talking to you if you are a woman with big breasts. And she stopped there. And I was like, please don't just stop there. Please continue, because even if you don't have big breasts as a woman, you may know somebody else who does. And sometimes what happens is when you are too specific, or when you're not specific enough, people discount themselves. So in that situation, if that person had put on the website, this website is for women with big boobs, if you don't have big boobs, you would disqualify yourself and you would say, there's no point in me looking on this website because I don't have big boobs. Whereas if you say it's for women with big boobs, and for those of you who have friends or family members with big boobs, even you're going to be like, oh, that could apply to me as well. So I'm going to stay on here. So yes, be specific about who it is that you want to work with, but just make sure that you're not excluding a group of people that you could actually benefit from working with by being too specific. So it's about thinking about who you want to work with, and then who's in that orb, who's in that sphere of influence that you could also kind of bring in as well. So be clear on your audience. The next thing that I would say that you need to do when you're starting a business, and I feel like this, and for me, this is like the number one thing, you need to understand what it means to have a business. And I say that because as an employee, when you are working for somebody else, you have a job description. There is something that is set out that says to you, step by step, this is what your role involves. These are all the things that you need to do. This is the frequency of the meetings that you have. This is what you do if you have any questions. Whereas when you start a business, you don't have that, right? There is no kind of job description that you have. There is nothing that you can look at that tells you what it is that you need to do. So as an individual, you need to educate yourself and understand, what does it mean for me to have a business? What are the things that I need to have in place? And you alluded to them. So, how can I register my business? Do I need to get my business registered? Do I need to register with HMRC as self-employed? How do I check to make sure that the business name that I want to choose isn't taken, or it's not illegal for me to use because I'm using Gov or something like that? So like those for me are like the fundamental things that you need to understand as a business owner. And another big part of understanding what it means to run a business is, what skills do I need? Because again, you're not taught in school or in college. Well, you weren't when I was going to school and college. You weren't taught how to run a business. And so what I see is a lot of people kind of coming into starting any type of business, but they really haven't assessed, well, what are the skills that I need to develop myself in order to make sure that I am running the business in the most effective way. And what I tend to find happen is that the people who don't do that, they tend to struggle because they haven't identified the core skills that they need. They haven't identified that they need organizational skills, digital skills. They haven't identified that, oh, I don't know what it means to identify my ideal client. I don't know how to use social media. I don't know how to market my business. They haven't identified those core skills. So what happens is they launch their business and they start promoting on social media because they think that's the first step. Nobody responds to the content that they're creating because they're not being clear on who they're speaking to and they haven't developed their skills in creating content. They lose confidence. They stop posting on social media. They stop being excited about their business. They stop taking action in their business. And then the business slowly kind of drifts away and nothing happens with it. And they get tainted by that experience. And when they speak to somebody else, a friend or a family member who was going to be starting a business, they say to them, don't do it. I tried it. It was a complete failure. I started putting out content on social media. Nobody was paying attention to me. You're better off getting a job. When actually the reason that people weren't paying attention to you is because you didn't understand the skills that you needed to develop and you didn't understand the way that you needed to communicate with your audience or even how to identify your audience. So that was a lot. So I'm going to summarize what I said there because I get so excited about this. I'm like, okay, there's all of these things. All of the things. So like one of the first things you need to do is just get clear on what is the purpose of your business? Like, what is it that you are doing? And then the second thing is get clear on your target audience. Who is it that this product or service that you are creating is for? And then the third thing that I would say is so important is to understand what it means to be a business owner. Get clear on the skills that you need to develop. Get clear on those fundamental steps that you need to take to register your business, when it is that you need to register as self-employed, how it is that you go about doing that. Do that research so that you're not caught off guard and then suddenly you're like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that and now I have to scramble to get all of these things done. So do those fundamental essential things, and obviously under like those fundamental essential things of developing your skills, there are other things like understanding what agreements you need to have in place, understanding what to include in your privacy policy and where to have that. So there's all of those things, but if you don't know, then you're going to make that mistake of not making sure that you've got everything in place.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that is so important, especially in the wedding industry. The number of people that I speak to, couples that have had terrible experiences with vendors, and I say to them, well, did you have a contract? And they say no. And I'm just like, that is one, as a wedding vendor, you fundamentally need to have a contract or order forms with terms and conditions so that your couples know what to expect, know how it's going to be delivered, because it might not be that someone, I think, to be honest with you, the stories that I've heard, it is the vendor's faults. However, there are cases where a couple might turn around and say, you know, oh, well, you know, the photographer came and took our photos and then it took us 12 weeks to get them.
Yeah.
That might be your standard turnaround time. I mean, it's a long turnaround time, but it could be your standard turnaround time. But if you haven't laid that out in a contract, then they're going to think that you're a terrible photographer because their friends got theirs back in 3 weeks. 100%. You need to set those expectations.
And that's going to then impact your reputation because, like you say, it could have all been clarified by you making it clear from the outset. Because you haven't made it clear, that then impacts your reputation. They're going to tell other people about it. And especially as a small business owner, your reputation is so important. People are more likely to tell somebody else about a negative experience than they are about a positive experience. So it's so important that you leave people with that good impression of you. And of course, I'm not saying that, you know, when you start out in business, everything is going to be perfect. It isn't. You're going to learn things as you go along, but you still need to know the fundamentals. And it's your responsibility as a business owner to understand what are those fundamental things that I need to know. Like in the same way that if you started a new job, you would be saying to your employer, what are the fundamental things that I need to understand to be able to do my job effectively? You need to be asking yourself the same question as you are running your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to sort of touch on some of the things that you have said in relation to weddings. So when you're looking at your audience with weddings, you think, okay, well, Lucille, I'm already done. I'm done. I'm talking to couples that are getting married. Ta-da! There's my niche. Well, do you know what, guys? There's actually niches upon niches in the wedding industry. Are you talking to couples that are destination weddings? Are you talking to couples who want to do a barn wedding? Are you talking to couples that want to do a country house wedding? Are you talking to a couple that want to go off into the woods somewhere and do a marquee wedding? You know, there are so many different styles of wedding and also feels of wedding. So is it contemporary? Is it modern? Is it romantic? Traditional? All of those things that you need to take that into consideration, because that can hone your message so that when you are putting out your content, when you are talking to your couples, you can really hit the mark. And what I've always said, and I'm sure Lucille will probably agree with me, is that, you know, when you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. That is something that we have heard time and time again. But when you talk to your people, it attracts other people. So just because you're talking to a small niche, like, you know, people who want to get married in Italy that live in the UK, that is going to be a very small niche. But that doesn't mean that you're only going to attract people who want to get married in Italy. You will find that people want to get married in Spain and they think, oh, well, she does Italy, maybe she'll do Spain. You might have people that are getting married in the UK, but just love your personality and what you're doing and the way you sound, and they want to work with you as well. So it doesn't exclude people from working with you, but it allows you to let your personality and your ideal situation shine through, and that will attract more people.
100%. And I love that you've said as well that there are the niches within the niches, because the way that you speak to those different niches is going to be different, right? So if I'm speaking to, you know, if I'm in the wedding industry and I'm speaking to people who are getting married for the first time, there are going to be specific needs and fears of that couple because it's their first wedding. So I'm going to have to provide more information about how things work because they're not going to understand, and I'm going to want to allay their concerns, and there's going to be more trust required. Whereas if somebody is getting married for like the third or the fourth time, they're probably like pros at it by now, and they don't need as much hand holding from me. If they're getting married abroad, they're going to have fears and concerns, and again, it's about you with them being able to demonstrate, well, I've already got connections and relationships with people in Italy and France and Spain, so you don't need to worry about that. I can take all of that off your hands. Those are great selling points to help you to kind of stand out from the competition. And I think a mistake that a lot of business owners make is because you are an expert at what it is that you do, and because you know what it is that you do so well, you sometimes forget to communicate in your message the extent of your expertise. And I know that I do that myself, right? You know, there's so much that I can kind of do to help my clients. I'm not always as vocal about that. So you could be missing out on opportunities by not actually tooting your own horn and showcasing your full portfolio of expertise and all of the things that you can do for people. Because as you say, even if you know that you specialize in helping people to get married in Italy, if you've got a particular skill set that you say that, you know, I can build up great relationships, I can make sure that I can relieve your stress, I can make sure that I can find the right caterers for you, it's not going to matter that you say that you specialize in weddings in Italy or Spain, because the person who's getting married is going to be like, I need these additional things that you're offering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that I got told when I was doing my photography from one of my tutors was, show what you want to shoot. So, and this can work. There are some vendors that don't always have pictures of couples on their website. So a florist might not have, they tend to focus, like they might have the bride, but it'll just be our hands holding the bouquet and things like that. So you might not have the people in it. But where we do have the people in the shots, we also need to be very careful not to be excluding people. So when you show what you want to shoot, what you show is what people think you do.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier about the big boob thing, you could self-exclude. You know, my boobs are an average size. So I would self-exclude from big boobed things because that's not me. My daughter, on the other hand, she'd be with you. So, you know, we exclude ourselves like that. So if you are on your website showing only barn weddings, fantastic. But if you are only showing white couples, then anybody else is going to think they're not going to be able to help me. If you are only showing heterosexual couples, all of the LGBTQ plus are going to be nervous about contacting you. So you need to be really careful about showing what you want to do without excluding. And I think that is a delicate line that we are balancing these days.
Yeah, 100%. And I that's such a great example. And and I don't know about you as well, but sometimes, like when I'm looking to invest in my business and I'm looking at memberships and they've got kind of pictures or testimonials from people who have been through the program before, if I can see that it really is just the same type of people, maybe it's all people who are in their 60s, I'm going to say that's not the group for me then, because I'm not in my 60s. So absolutely, people will self-exclude based off of how it is that you present yourself on your website or however it is that you're marketing yourself. So you need to understand in your mind, who is it that I'm trying to reach? And do my images does the information that I'm putting out there match the type of people that I want to reach? And if it doesn't, I need to look at this again. And you can ask for feedback from people, right? So you can say to people, this is my website, take a look at this and tell me, based off of my website, who do you think that I'm kind of targeting? I had I don't understand. Do you know what's happening? Sometimes, very randomly, I am upstairs, my Google device is downstairs. Twice today, I have just been talking and my Google device, which is downstairs, has responded to me. I may have a ghost on it and I'm scared. And I'm just like, I don't know. Do you need help,
Lucille? I'll come. I'm only an hour away.
Please, let's not end this interview. Let's just keep it going just in case something happens to me.
Do you know what? I have an Alexa. She does the same thing.
I was just like, I'm so scared. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to go. As soon as this is done, I'm leaving the house. And so I had somebody on my podcast who was a branding specialist, and so I was interviewing her on my podcast, and she took a look at my website, just, you know, because that's just what she does. And she was like, the thing that I love about your website is that your website is, tell me that you work with women without telling me that you work with women, because everything about my website screams feminine. It's very pink, it's very, this is, you know, it's very bright colors, so it's clear from my website who it is that I want to work with. But if that's not who my target audience was, I may not necessarily understand that people going to my website would assume that my target audience is women, because it may be men. So again, it's about asking yourself the question, who is my target audience? And does the branding or does my marketing material reflect that? Does it make it clear? Or am I, like you say, or am I excluding people accidentally and I have no idea that I'm doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth making sure that you are trying to produce images and create images. And there was a lot of stuff in the wedding industry when we were talking about this back when Black Lives Matter really sort of kicked off, and there was a lot of wedding shoots going because we couldn't do anything else because, you know, COVID, we didn't have real weddings, so there was a lot of fake shoots going on. Fake shoots, you know, they are test shoots, they are you know, prop shoots, ways that the wedding industry can, you know, showcase the best of what they can do for a wedding day. And there was a lot of people that were obviously trying to take on board what was coming out of that, and, you know, trying to be more inclusive and trying to hire models that were reflective of that. And then they kind of got hit with the, don't fake it, don't just make out that you're this, that and the other. And it was just like, can't win, because at the end of the day, you've got to start somewhere. And people, and it's very, very much in the wedding industry, people want to see themselves in those photos. And if they don't see somebody who looks like them, they're not going to feel like you're going to understand who they are as a person. Maybe you're not going to understand their culture. You know, for example, Indian weddings, they're 3-day affairs. You know, there's different outfits on different days. And the Chinese do a beautiful tea ceremony, and they do this thing at home, and then they do the thing in the church. And there's so many different cultures. And if they don't see themselves in your work, then they might think you're not going to understand. But somebody who is showing that, they're going to go to that person because they're going to feel like they are understood. And there is kind of a bit of an element of, you've got to kind of fake it till you make it in that respect. You know, I mean, obviously do your research, you know, don't turn around and say, I specialize in Indian weddings, go and do a load of Indian wedding shoots, and then turn up and not actually know how a day runs. But if you haven't got that diversity on your website, there is nothing wrong with going out there and creating shoots that give you that, until you can replace it with real weddings, just so that people can see that, oh, you know, I could fit into that wedding image, that could be me. So I think that's an important part of the audience side of things, and reaching your audience, that you make sure that, you know, you're covering all your bases, that you're not being, you know, unintentionally excluding people. Because I've heard from somebody actually came to my website and contacted me, DM'd me, and was talking about how when she got married to her wife, that she was very nervous about going to different people and talking to them about working with them on their wedding day, and that, you know, she was looking for that kind of almost like a sticker to say, you know, we are gay friendly. And, you know, she felt nervous about it. And she asked if the society was going to address that, and if the society would do something with regard to that. And I said, well, definitely on my radar now you brought it to me. But it hadn't even occurred to me that they would feel that, because that's not where I'm coming from. So it was lovely to hear that.
And that's kind of what I was going to say earlier, is that it's I think it's great that now there's more awareness from people about the need to be more inclusive. But as you say, because that's not your reality, and sometimes like attracts like, right? It's probably natural that if I am looking at a photographer's website and they've only photographed white people, it's likely I may miss them and think, oh, okay, then, well, that's what you specialize in. My black skin requires different kind of lighting than a white person would require. So I'm not sure that you have the expertise to do that. But if I go onto somebody else's website and I can see that they have photographed lots of different colored women, I'm going to be more inclined to work with them, because I'm going to be like, okay, then, so you understand what it's like. So, and I understand about people doing these photo shoots to be able to demonstrate that they're more inclusive. I've noticed it in lots of people's marketing materials, where it's not just white people who are the stock photos now, there are black images in there as well. But again, it's not just about that. It's like you say, it's about educating yourself as well. It's about understanding what are the specific barriers that they're facing. So I love the example that you gave, where you were saying that woman approached you and you hadn't even considered those particular barriers that person would be facing, and trying to find a photographer who would be happy to photograph a same-sex couple, because that's not your reality. And so I think it's about, if you are going to do that, if you want to be more inclusive, it's much more than just sticking up a photo on your website. It's about then also understanding, what does it mean to be in this person's shoes? What are the specific challenges that this type of person would face? And how can I make sure that I'm giving them the confidence that I am equipped to be able to deal with these challenges? And it may just be that the way that you deal with that is by doing some market research, because if you don't have anybody already in your field that is black, or who is gay, or is any other color, and you want to understand how to reach more of that target audience, then do some research yourself first to see what it is that you can establish, and then ask questions of people, and then do some market research. Because I think one of the things that I think is a little bit insulting is when somebody is trying to understand about your culture or understand about your sexuality, and rather than doing some initial research themselves to be able to find out information, they're relying on you.
Because Google's a thing, guys.
It's a huge thing, right? There's so much information that you can get out there. There's nothing wrong with you looking yourself first to be able to understand. And you can preface it by saying to somebody when you're doing market research, look, I've done all of this research and I understand X, Y, and Z. But also what I really want to do is I want to get your perspective on it. So do you mind if I ask some questions? That's going to be better received than somebody saying, look, I have no idea about any of this. I haven't even bothered to research it. I'm just going to rely on you to tell me everything that I need to know. So be proactive is what I'm saying. Be proactive. It's so important. There's so much information out there. There are no excuses nowadays.
No, that's so true. That's so true. And I feel like for me, part of the, not realizing with that lady in particular was not obviously at all. Why did I even say obviously? Not obviously. I am not gay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't understand. But equally, I have nothing against gay people. I'm all for love. Like I said at the beginning, I love love and I love weddings and I love the celebration of love. I don't care who you love. I am here to celebrate you. But it wouldn't have even crossed my mind when I was doing my photography that a gay couple would come to my website and would instantly discount me as their photographer because I hadn't done any gay weddings. So I had nothing to sort of back up that I was a gay friendly photography company. And that kind of upsets me to think that I kind of missed out on doing some weddings because I wasn't showing that in my work. Because obviously you've got to wait for somebody to come and actually have a conversation with you and get that. And there's a lot of people out there that won't take that step if they don't see it first.
It does take a lot of confidence. And so I'm glad that they approached you. And again, like there are things as a business owner, which is again why it's clear about, well, what is it? Who is it that I want to speak to? Like, who is it that I want to reach? Because in that situation, if you're looking at your portfolio of work and you're saying, I don't really have any Black people on here, I don't really have any Asian people on here, I don't really have any gay people on here, that then gives you an opportunity to then maybe approach particular venues and say, look, I am a photographer, this is what it is that I do. Particular venues that potentially, this is where the research comes in, where that gay people tend to frequent, or Black people or people of color tend to frequent. So you can start to make connections with those people, and then that's going to be your in to make sure that you are then being selected to be chosen for those particular events so that your portfolio becomes broader. And one of the things that I did in my business, because again, like attracts like, so as a Black business coach, a Black female business coach, I am likely to attract more Black females who want to start their business, because again, they will resonate with me more and they'll think, oh, you'll understand particular struggles that I will have in terms of access to funding and all of those things. And so one of the things that I did is that I did some volunteer work where I was mentoring with another organization where there was a wider pool of people that I could be working with, which I necessarily probably wouldn't have reached. And so because of that, I got to work with a wider range of people, including men as well, who, although my business is targeted more towards women, doesn't mean that if a man approached me, I'm going to be like, hold up, I ain't working with you because you're a man. Of course, I'm going to work with a man if he has the same values as me. So what I did is that I mentored and I started to work with this entire different group of people. And what that did is that it also helped me to improve my skills, because I was working with business owners who had different businesses than I was used to coaching people on. So even doing something like that, even just giving your time to be able to get in front of a different group of people, it's a benefit because it helps you to increase your skills and your expertise. So it's not just about being diverse, it's also beneficial for you as well to be able to upskill your own self.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And I love that we got to cover that in this discussion, because this is so important for people that are about to start a new business, but also important for my regular listeners that are maybe 5-10 years into business, that are sort of struggling with this, how to do it and how to do it properly and how to approach it. So I'm really grateful that we've had that discussion. One little story that I will tell you that is like, this is a different diversity issue that I think isn't considered when we are looking at our audience and how we're working. And this was one of the not one of the complaints. I had a friend come to me with her wedding photos. She lives in Wales. I was not her photographer. I was doing photography at the time, but she's like a friend of my mum's. So we weren't sort of a close close friends as we are now, because she's
Yeah.
a very close friend, and we text all the time. But she sent me she said, can I send you my wedding photos? Because I need your professional opinion. I'm really disappointed. And I said to her instantly, yes, you can send them to me. I can't judge the artistry, but I can give you a professional opinion on the skill level.
Yeah.
But the fact you have said you're disappointed means they're not good enough.
Yeah.
Like, straight out the box. And she sent me these images, and I was heartbroken for her. I really was. I did some research. I went onto this guy's website. I checked out his website. I looked at what he'd done. And I was just like, he didn't really have mountains of images on his website. He had maybe 3 or 4 weddings on there. And then he had this one amazing image that I was like, wow, that's a beautiful image. Now, if he could produce, like, and then I looked at the photos she sent me, and I was just like, hang on, something ain't adding up here. I Googled image, reverse searched that, and found out that it was the stock image that came with that wedding photography template website.
Gosh.
Which is one of the reasons that I started the society, was because I was like, that is bang out of order. You know, you are a photographer. You do not have stock photography on your website. That is so misleading.
It is.
But the thing with this particular bride, and there were several images that, well, there was more than several. I literally said to her, out of the 300 and something photos that she sent, I said, there's only about 280 that I would have let out of my studio. And some of them I only let out so that you would have an image of that person, because obviously I wanted to sort of give her an idea of what I would do. And you need to have a picture of everybody that's in your wedding party. And it was disappointing. But her mother was in a wheelchair. And this photographer had taken a picture of, and this woman, she's so close to her mum's passed now, but she was so close to her mum, had the bride and the groom, both older couple, you know, I think they were probably in their 50s when they got married, an elderly mum in a wheelchair in the middle, and the other two stood up stock upright either side of them. Now, I've never sat in a wheelchair myself, but this is something that I feel like has been more talked about in the world a little bit more than other things that people get excluded for. And so I feel like it was around me a lot more in conversation about how you would treat somebody with different abilities to you, and how to include them in what you're doing. I feel like that was a conversation that was had more than conversations on how to make sure that gay people feel safe in your environment, and how to make sure you're being included. I don't feel like that was there when I was younger, but disability was something that was spoken about. And I know that somebody doesn't want to be spoken down to if they're sat in a wheelchair. I know that as best you can, you should try and put yourself on the same level as them. And that doesn't mean crouching in front of them like a child and talking to them, but sitting on a chair next to them so that you're not towering above them. And it absolutely boggled my mind that when this is her mother, why he didn't have them crouch down next to her and hold her hand and put their arm around her or something. Or there was literally another picture where there was a bench in the churchyard. Why didn't the bride and groom sit on the bench and have mum sat in, you know, mum can get out of her wheelchair and, you know, she's not paralyzed, she just can't walk very well, so she could have moved on to a bench and they could have sat on a bench with, and you know, so many opportunities to have a beautiful image of mother and daughter and the couple with the mother. And they've just got this one where she literally looks like she's being flanked by the beefeaters at London Tower Bridge, you know, but in wedding gear. It boggled my mind, and I was so sad for her, because, you know, to me, that's something that is just basic common sense. And there are people out there that just can't even do that. It doesn't even you know. And he was shooting down on children as well, and it's like, it's photography 101. You get down to the level of the child to take a picture. It's a much better picture than scaring the life out of them by pointing a lens down on them. But you know, that's another thing altogether. But so I feel like, you know, making sure that you are aware of these things and educating yourself in the first instance is going to put you leagues ahead of everybody else. So that was awesome. And then also I'm really glad that you kind of covered the fundamentals there of actually setting up a business. And I think that is so important before you quit your job, before you quit your day job, is to do that research and have that in place and know. And there's lots of help out there for business startups in regards to that kind of stuff, and you know, dotting your I's and crossing your T's and making sure you've got agreements in place and things like that. So there is definitely a lot of help out there in your locality, usually free enterprise type setups that you can go to for that. But Lucille, before we end out, what is it that you can help people with, and how can people get in touch with you?
Thank you for that opportunity. So I help people with being able to identify and attract the right clients. So who is your target audience? How is it that you get in front of them? How is it that you create an offer? What goes into an offer? Because a mistake that I think a lot of business owners make is they think, I'm just going to put this offer out there, but they're not really clear about, well, how is this offer going to help my ideal client? Like, what's going to be different for them once they've used my product or my service? And so I help you to get really clear about, well, what's that difference? What's that transformation that it is that I offer? And then included within that building out the offer is things like building out your digital course. If you've got like a digital course, helping you to create that digital course, and also manage your time in your business as well, because I'm and like you are as well, like I love to be, it's only since I've started my business that I love to be organized. I've got Trello boards, I've got Excel spreadsheets, and it's something that kind of keeps me on track. So I help you to put those systems in place so that you know what is it that you need. You have your standard operating procedures that makes running your business easier, and you've got your everyday processes, so you know what you're doing in your business every single day. And it's not a case of you sitting down at your laptop and like, what do I need to do today? How am I going to make money today? You've got the processes and the tools in place to kind of be able to support you. So yeah, so I offer one-to-one coaching. I've got digital products as well, from how to identify and attract your ideal clients to putting together a business plan, lots of different things to kind of help you at the beginning of your business journey and as you start to grow as well.
Fantastic. And I think a business plan is so important. I think that is one thing that people just don't do these days, because they don't have to go to a bank and apply for a loan to set up their business so much. So they just start a business and don't even do a plan. So that is definitely something to check out. So where can people find you, Lucille?
Yes, my favorite place to hang out is Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram at Lucille Roache.
Fabulous. Okay, guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much, Lucille. I think this has been an absolutely terrific conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.